everybody. Welcome back to part two of our monolithic discussion. Man, we sure about tackling this, Chris? You still with me? Still good
Well,
for it?
we're into a second show already, and we're already halfway in. So might as well go all the way and
Yeah,
and do a miserable job on this topic and do miserably bad all the way through.
yeah, just leave it at
So
that. So,
how's it going, everyone? We have got a loaded show today.
oh yeah,
What are we talking about this week, Ian?
we are still on our enormous topic of gaming. That is console gaming versus PC gaming versus mobile, and about everything you have in between.
And mobile and handheld.
And handheld.
There's a difference.
And
There's
handheld.
not much of a difference, but some companies trying to make there be a difference, and we'll get into that. We got a lot of news. Should we just go right into the news?
Yeah, let's hit it.
Okay, I am excited about this week's news,
This
which
is
is
good
2
stuff.
weeks. Where's the news? I was mad. I was mad at you last week because we didn't do a show, and we're going to talk about this after. Yes, we're going to talk about this after the news. You're going to give us some. You're going to give us a scoop because you went to PAX. You went to PAX. Is it PAX South? Is that what it's called?
PAX South. That's the one.
PAX South. So we could not do the show last week, and I was mad at you because there were some great pieces of news that came out. So I saved most of those because I thought that they're noteworthy enough to where we talk about them. So let's talk about that right now. So some of this not so much the news as much as we're just going to talk about some stuff that happened in the last couple of weeks. But yeah, let's start out first. Last week. Long-awaited title for Star Wars Episode 8 came out. Disney announced it on Twitter. The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi. In red font, no less. Red font, The Last Jedi. I can't make fun of it too much because, not the title, but the fact that even though they gave us 3 new words, and they put the words that we did have, Star Wars, they put those in red font. I can't make fun of the fact that people just dissected the shit out of that because I did the same thing. Not to too much of a degree, but I just like, what's it mean? It's in red. And who's the last Jedi?
Well,
and you dissect it. But first, let me ask you, what do you think of the name?
Well, the first thing I wanted to say about it was, let's face it, you released a Star Wars title or something today, and it's an Illuminati conspiracy theory, right?
That's right.
When I honestly, where my mind goes when I hear this, I think back to Return of the Jedi, and I say that because when I first heard that title, I caught up with all the Star Wars movies when I was around fourth grade, about '93 or so, and when I saw that last title, it gave me something to immediately look forward to. You knew what this movie was going to be focused on. So one way or another, I'm like, oh man, hey, is Luke going to get his retribution? What's going to happen with Vader? Obviously, we aren't dealing with the same characters in this case, but there's some pretty strong allusions here. If you look at where we're left at the end of the last Star Wars movie that we saw, here we are. Luke has a chance to adopt a new student. It's this huge question: Will he do that after how terrible he feels about what happened in the New Order he was trying to start before?
So you like the title?
I like it.
You like it, okay. So now here's the thing: there's a couple things, kind of what you were talking about right there, the Last Jedi, and what needs to be said, and what everyone else says, is that you need to be reminded that Jedi is both a singular and a plural word.
Mm-hmm.
So. Do you think they're just talking about one Jedi, or do you think they're talking about multiple Jedi?
Great question. Star Wars has always done a great job, I think, in plurality. Just based off of what we've seen, I'm looking forward to multiple.
You think You think that title's based on multiple Jedi?
And I only count that because I'm not counting Masters as well.
Right. I don't know. I think, again, freaking out about the title and, trying to figure out what it means and, doing my Google searches on the topic and listening to people who shouldn't have an audience, quite frankly. Kind of like us. But,
all right.
I think the title is as simple as just talking about Luke. I think there could be something to be said and which I don't want to see happen. I want Luke to be around in episode 8, 9, and beyond, because quite honestly, the evolution of what a Jedi was when Return of the Jedi came out in the 80s versus what we think of a Jedi now, and how that has expanded and grown. We've never really gotten much of a chance to see Luke Skywalker as that, and we will get a chance of that in Episode 8, but we haven't had much of a chance. So I want to see that as much as possible. I think it could mean it's just Luke, or I think it could be a transition from Luke to then there being just one other. So
Right.
maybe Luke and Rey, and maybe something horrible happens to Luke in Episode 8, so then it's just Rey.
Right.
A bit of a passing of the torch, a bit of an evolution of it. Because I think that's what we're going to see in this Star Wars trilogy. That's going to be one of the bigger topics of this current trilogy that we're going to get, 7, 8, 9, is the changing of Jedi and Sith to whatever is going to come, because the Knights of Ren are not Sith. The Sith are dead.
Right.
And so now you have the Knights of Ren and whatever Snoke is, and if he even is a Knights of Ren or not. And I think that might be part of it, is a kind of a passing of the torch, passing of the guard, so to speak. That being said, I don't want that. Again, I don't want that to happen. I want to see Luke kicking ass and taking names for the next 10 movies or so. Well, not 10 movies, but as long as possible. And I think that's more the child in me than anything, because when I was a kid, Luke was the guy.
Right.
He was the hero. So I don't want him going anywhere. Here's
something to frame too. Since we're talking about this idea of legacy, Jedi's successors passing the torch. Here's one thing Star Wars always used that I haven't seen yet in the newest ones. We always spoke about metachlorian counts before, right?
Oh boy,
there was always this
You said the M word.
Yeah, there was always this pre-hype that always placed that in the back of the audience's mind. Oh, here's someone with a lot of potential. Here's someone who we could really see develop. Here's someone who's really going to pick up the Force and run with it. This was for Luke. This was for Anakin. I think for good reason. To the characters that have shaped the stories we followed for so many years, of course. But here's what I'm wondering about. With Rey and even Finn. We haven't had any kind of talk like that mentioned for Rey yet. What I'm curious about is if we're ever overlooking anything, and maybe even Finn has some sort of evolution on his own. I think it's too early to call that, but I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, though, I sort of hope we steer away from that. While I didn't hate it, it always reminded me of a little bit of like the DBZ power level idea, right? Next thing you know, our scouter is going to be breaking because that's a different story. So I hope they steer away from it, but I think they have the potential to surprise us a bit too, and I think there very well might be something outside of just Rey and Luke. We'll see.
Do you think there's a chance that Finn's going to be Force sensitive?
Possibly.
But you don't want to see that?
What I don't want to see is the metachlorian hype. If he is going to be Force sensitive, introduce it, but sort of have it as it doesn't have to be as much of a shock factor as Rey, because she develops so quick, but sort of have it as a maybe it starts as like a one-off, maybe a hint of, but then it's just sort of just placed in front of us and just introduced. I think I'd be happy with that. Man,
I can't believe it. You said the M word twice. You're not supposed to say that, right?
What, for Star Wars fans?
No, midichlorians, and now I feel dirty saying no. Seriously, that's like from all the stuff that came out of the prequels. People hate. Big fans hate the midichlorian thing. I don't care. It's some kind of it was a bad attempt to put some kind of scientific explanation as to people who are force sensitive. I didn't care. I didn't care then. I don't care now. It doesn't really matter. But it's almost collectively agreed upon in the hardcore fan base that the midichlorians were stupid, and you're not supposed to say we're supposed to. We were supposed to ignore it.
Which is fair. I'm more than happy to ignore that. Again, I thought it was just a way of kind of hyping it that really didn't need to be there. The way they've introduced this in Force Awakens, I think, is awesome. It gives the Force more of that whole mystical idea rather than, hey, let's throw some science in and explain it. So I'm with it.
I always wonder if they're ever going to say it again. If they'll ever say that word again in a Star Wars movie. I would like them to, almost to kind of just poke at the fans. Yeah, that's right. It's still there. We said it. It's still a thing. It's canon. You can that and Jar Jar. You can ignore it all you want. It's canon. Since we're on the topic, and I'm sure in the next year we will definitely talk about Star Wars a lot. I think we're going to get a teaser trailer here in the next month or so. A little surprised they're not actually going to have one at the Super Bowl. Maybe they'll surprise us, but I don't think so. They've announced already who has bought in ad times as far as trailers, which studios have bought in time, and I don't think Lucasfilm was in there. Disney was, but these are Lucasfilm movies, so a little bit different. But who knows? May surprise us. But since we're on the topic, it's the first time we're talking about Star Wars. Who do you think is Rey's parents?
Oh my! Let's.
Yeah.
Oh.
We're gonna talk. It is the 10,000-pound gorilla in the room. It always will be until they tell us.
This is one I so want to save for a Star Wars discussion later.
Yep, but I'm gonna put you on the record right now.
You're the worst.
we can get into theories and stuff because I actually have 3. So and I don't know. I like or dislike all of them, but because there is so little known that. You can't know for sure. There's no one can come out unless it's someone from Lucasfilm. No one can come out and say, "I know who it is." But I'm just curious.
Well,
what is your number one theory?
Okay, my number one, the number one thing that I gravitate towards is, and I think Force Awakens, of course, really put me on this track was Rey is Luke Skywalker's daughter.
Okay, that's all right.
That's I'll go ahead and give you my 2 since we're talking about it, and I'm gonna go on record here, so I'll eat crow all day if I'm wrong. All right. And number 2 is the idea that she is in the line of the Palpatines.
Okay. That's ironically that is also my second one as well.
Seriously?
That is not my most likely idea. That is not my favorite / most likely idea, but that is my second one.
Fair enough.
There's something to be said. I mean, hey, Sith they're horrible motherfuckers, and I could definitely see Palpatine with a bunch of whores and, getting one of them preggers and having that go down the line.
We don't know about his past, so
yeah. Not a lot, no. Not a lot of official canon, no. But when you're the most powerful guy in the universe, you sleep with whatever the hell you want. And so, while at this point it would actually be in the lineage, not a direct descendant, but
right.
That's one of them. I agree with that one, not completely. My number one is that she's a Kenobi.
Okay.
I think the granddaughter of Obi-Wan Kenobi at that point. Clone Wars did acknowledge that Obi-Wan Kenobi did like the ladies and had relations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's there. The seeds are planted both literatively and figuratively.
Yeah.
So I think she's a Kenobi, and there's some evidence to that as well. The accent is a strong one.
Yeah.
But we don't really know. But yeah, so we'll see. So, I mean, we're talking about those. First time we're talking about Star Wars, the current trilogy. So, before we leave that topic, though, the red font.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? I mean, it is significant only in the fact that it is one of 2 new things we got, and the fact that they did change the font color from the yellowish orange to red. It does have to be noted that while it's not always remembered, and I had forgotten myself, there is 2 other times that they used a red font, and that was with Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi.
Yep. I was just about to say Return of the Jedi.
So, in the fact that this one's, in both those cases, Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi, obviously very heavy, the titles as far as Force users go, and this one, The Last Jedi. So you don't get much of a hint there. But what do you think of that? What do you think that means?
Yeah, I'm the last one that dives super far into Star Wars conspiracy, man. But my
you have to get it right now.
oh yeah, no pressure. All right.
You're a casual fan, but you must get it right this minute.
as right as we got the audio right last time, right?
Or you can never speak about it again.
Oh man, then I'll have to abstain my vote. No.
No.
In all honesty, the first thing that comes to my mind is the Force. That's true, not just because of some of the reasons you mentioned as well, but yeah, like I said, Return of the Jedi came to mind. I was thinking of the font, the color choice, and everything else. You don't get to predict the whole story from this stuff, but back of my mind it says there's going to be something. Oh, many try. Back of my mind it says something super serial is about to go down. I leave it at that.
Yeah, I definitely think there's going to be. I think it lends itself to. When they made the announcement on Twitter with the title, they specifically used the words of it being the title of the next part of the Skywalker saga. And obviously, in that being the case, Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi, obviously very heavy themes for Skywalkers.
Right.
Almost mirroring themselves, where you have the fall of Anakin Skywalker in Revenge of the Sith, and then you have the fall of Darth Vader, and what many people consider the return of Anakin Skywalker in Return of the Jedi, although brief. A lot of people like to think of that as Darth Vader dying, but also Anakin Skywalker having a moment with his son before he dies.
Right.
So, that being the case, there's definitely some relation with that. All that is leading towards something I don't like, which is Luke dying.
Yeah.
I really hope they don't, and I think with Carrie Fisher passing away, and she won't be in Episode 9. Either the actress, although they did say that Carrie Fisher, General Leia, was going to have she's going to have an even bigger role in Episode 8, but then even bigger role in Episode 9. That obviously won't happen, at least not the actress, maybe the character.
Right.
They may recast, but it's still not going to be the same, because then you have all three of the main.
They would be hard pressed to do a recast there.
You think so? Now we're going pretty far down the rabbit hole.
We are, and I'll pause. I will pause that, but I think that would be a bit of a struggle.
I don't think they have a choice.
Well, part of that depends too, as well as how much was done beforehand, as in how much footage already been recorded.
All of Episode 8 was done.
Right.
I mean, they may do some reshoots, but all of Episode 8 was done. But I mean, how do you just? They can't just kill off Leia off screen.
Hey man, use the Force. Crazy stuff could happen. It could work out.
I mean, I suppose it depends on how much of the story, because Leia's obviously a very integral part of this particular trilogy, even more so than the previous one, episodes 4, 5, and 6, because that's Kylo Ren is her son. And then what happened with Han Solo, and she's a huge part of this trilogy this time. And you can't just, unless they resolve that stuff in Episode 8, which I don't think they did. I mean, that's obviously a bigger part of, I think, this current trilogy, that whole story arc. How do you just kill her off then? How do you resolve that? Especially if you already killed off Luke in Episode 8, and he dies at the end of it.
Find out when we talk about Star Wars, man.
Find out next week. But no, I don't think they have to recast. They've already said, Disney's already come out and said that they will not do a digital representation of her.
Good.
So that's off the table, which I think is fine. At the same time, for and against it. I think it depends on how her family feels, in which case, to be quite honest, the way Carrie Fisher was, she probably would have loved the fact that they would have digitally recreated her.
Yeah.
And probably would have told them to make her look more attractive. Because she'd aged a bit and stuff, but that's the way she was. That's the way that actress was.
Right.
So, she would have had a lot of fun with that. She probably would have said, take off 15 pounds and some of the wrinkles, but yeah, I don't, then you do have the sensitivity of the fan base, which is, by the way, the biggest movie fan base ever. And so there's a lot of opinions that you got to try to take care of there.
It's dicey ground.
But you don't think recasting is a possibility?
I mean, of course, it's a possibility. I just think that's something that would be difficult to pull off with the fan base and how massive Star Wars.
And that's true, but I mean, at that point, what choice do you have? I mean, they have no choice. But I suppose they can reject that that's Leia. But even Carrie Fisher wasn't Leia.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I'm going to leave it at this. There's a lot of twists and turns left for the story. Frankly, if the pace keeps at how Force Awakens was, right? I'm really trusting the hand Star Wars is in right now.
I agree. I think if this was any other franchise and any other company behind it, we would be having a different discussion on this. But
for sure.
Yeah. No, I understand that though, and in this situation, I definitely feel a lot more at ease on the topic than if it was a different company, if it was a different franchise. I agree. I think when it comes to Star Wars and when it comes to like Marvel, when it comes to most of the movies that Disney as a whole puts together, you can't put much more confidence in a company. Those who know me know that I used to be a staunch hater of Disney. Oh, big time. But they've righted the ship in a lot of ways. So you want to get off this topic, though? I think we're in there now, man.
We're there. I mean,
I even warned that we were going there, but that being said, I still jumped in feet first.
I love it. But any longer, it's going to be a Star Wars show.
That's all right. That's fine. That's fine. No, okay, no, fair enough.
No, all good.
So we'll leave it there. Stuff to talk about.
Okay,
and like I said, I mean, we should get a teaser trailer sooner than later. We've got the whole year.
I agree.
To talk about this stuff.
I agree, and I mean, tonight's pretty open mic about our full topic anyway. So I'm glad to get a good snip of something else we're going to be diving into at some point.
Okay. All right. What's next then?
Second piece. So ZeniMax was awarded in its lawsuit against Oculus Rift. The reason why this is a big deal is it could affect the headset release schedule. The original suit was for about $4 billion, but the amount that ZeniMax actually won was $500 million, $500 million in compensation total. The whole thing came up over ZeniMax suing, basically saying that, hey, Oculus Rift broke a NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, and of course that led into grounds of copyright infringements and things of that nature. So there was a payout that did happen, but we were talking about VR a little bit last week, and I just wanted to take a highlight of this. It's crazy. Oculus Rift especially has felt like an eternal trial, at least for me. The conventions I've attended, even going to the PAX events, I swear it's something I always see. I always see it. Hey, demo Oculus Rift, demo VR. But it's like this demo phase is continuing ad infinitum. And I understand the different factors that are holding up release. I know there's a lot of different kinks to work out before everything else is hits the market. But on top of this, there's the copyright and the patent disputes and everything like that, and that kind of holds up even further. So it's kind of wild. I mean, usually I don't expect to see this kind of stuff until something is a little further along in the release cycle. Here's something that we don't even have in mass yet, and yet you can go to major conventions and use it, play it, still see it, demo the tech. But there's just all these snags, all these roadblocks, and it's just been issue after issue. So,
I don't have much to add on to this. We talked a little bit about virtual reality before, and we're going to talk about it again in the main topic for the week. I'm not a big fan. So to be honest with you, I didn't even know what this was
Yeah.
until I saw it in the notes. I'm like, what? $4 billion? What? Why have I
Yeah.
not heard of anything, or why don't I remember anything that has to do with gaming that includes $4 billion? But apparently something like that exists.
Yeah.
So, a bunch to do about nothing, in my opinion. I'm sorry, that's probably
No,
disrespectful
no.
of me to somebody, but
Hey.
it's not as interesting as Star Wars.
No lie. It's not, okay? It's really not.
See, that was 5 minutes of Star Wars time we could have had.
And if we take 5 more minutes of that, we will never, ever talk about gaming in the show.
Well, no, that's not true, and I'm going to segue us at that point.
All right.
Because my next topic is last week. Big deal. It was another Twitter announcement to check in on a certain day and time for an announcement from Marvel and Square Enix announcing a team up between the two to create over the next several years. I believe four games, four main console games or major games. Marvel-themed games over the next several years. These two are going to work together. They're going to make it happen. What's your initial feeling to that? Because I think you and I are going to have very different feelings about this.
Oh, we will. Here's the thing. Okay, going way back, and Chris knows I'm a little more partial towards Square. Not just the Square soft of the past, but there's a number of things I still enjoy from Square today.
I think it's safe to elaborate that you are a Square fan.
Yes.
And I am not.
Absolutely.
And we'll expand on that as we go through this topic, I'm sure. So.
The first thing that hits my mind, I think Kingdom Hearts, years ago when that came out. And while I can't liken this to the exact same thing, it's funny. It's like a deja vu. Everyone said, oh man, Disney and Square, this is going to suck. This can't happen. This is a really bad idea. This will never go anywhere. And it became a huge series. That's still rocking today. Like Kingdom Hearts 3 is probably one of the most anticipated console games we're currently looking at. It's always the question at the E3s, the Gamescom, all the major events, and going from there. So.
You're touching right on one of my problems with this.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is that it's always anticipated. It's always anticipated because it never comes out. But anyways,
if only if you have Nomura at the helm, and if it involves belts and zippers, many of them. But that's a different story. This with Marvel in particular, you know what? This is doable. Anybody who's actually followed Square for a while, you probably realize that there's been a line of products for some time. DC Square Enix collabs, Square Enix Marvel collabs. Most of the time, these have been takes on like die-cast statues and stuff, like a die-cast Square Enix. Their style of Batman, right? Or Square Enix, their style of some kind of Marvel hero. They flirted with this idea for a long time. So for some reason, a game feels like a kind of natural evolution of this. And if any of you think this is really weird and just out there, hey, I'm telling you, just go check out the Square Enix store. Just go on the website and just do a bit of digging. Guarantee it will not take you long to find something Marvel or DC related to Square. So,
all right. Is it my turn?
Hit it.
I'm actually, I don't like this. But maybe not for all the reasons you think. This is not just a blatant Square Enix, fuck you. No, that's not where I'm coming from on this. And it should be noted, I should specify that smaller companies of Square Enix, Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal, will be the developers that are taking care of at least some of these games. So in that, there you have different track records as far as production and what they're able to come up with. I think it needs to be noted that this, while it was a small announcement, and even then some of the specifics that came out with it, none of this has anything to do with Marvel Studios. So I don't think that these things are going to be based on the movie cinematic universe, which I think is a good thing. Because I think with the movement and the speed that those come out, which is 2 sometimes, in fact, next year we're getting 3 MCU movies. With Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor 3, and Spider-Man. So we're getting 3 of those. And with the speed that these things can move, and what we're going to be getting, and Sony is saying that they're going to try to crank out a Spider-Man every year, at least for the next few years. So I don't think there's room to play with a video game because as it is, movies take a couple years, a year and a half, if you really want to push it to make those things. Marvel's pretty good at keeping things close to the chest. I don't think they're going to want to start giving that information out to a gaming company, which is then going to spread that out to hundreds of developers, because that's what it takes to create some of these games.
Right.
They're not going to want to spread that information out. So I don't think that we're going to see anything for the MCU. That being said, now that's part of what I do like about this idea, is that Marvel Comics and the Marvel comic universe has been taking it getting their ass kicked this last year. Their all different Marvel Marvel Universe has been getting its ass kicked. They've made a lot of bad mistakes with a lot of good ideas. And they're just, so I think in that capacity, expanding and using the gaming to expand these new names, these new ideas, and getting them in people's hands, getting them in people's brains and in their, through their eyes and in their ears, I think that's good. I like that, because I am a Marvel Comics fan. So I think that's good. Now that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of games they make out of this. I mean, when you hear Marvel, you hear Square Enix, the first thing you're thinking is Marvel RPG. Am I wrong?
No,
that's the first thing that comes to mind. I don't know if I like that idea particularly. Let's see. I'm not sold on that, but I am sold on some games coming out based on the Marvel comic world. That being said, and I lay down a little bit of foundation, maybe there's not too much to worry about this, but at the same time, you can't overlook the fact that Square takes forever to come out with games. That's like a thing now, isn't it?
it is. Although I think a lot of that centers more around like the FF series, Cage, etc. I mean, but look at, like I was alluding to before. Look at who's leading it and who's the dev. FF.
Right. No, that matters. That matters.
It does. I mean, we were talking about this the other week. FF15 went into development hell, and to the point where Nomura stepped off, and different leads took it up. Tabata and his buddy, because he was just involved in so much, and it's crazy when things get overinflated to that point. So, and I don't blame it just on Square. I think that's Nomura as well, going a little too grandiose, and something doesn't need it. I thought he went overkill in Cage too as well, but that's another topic in and of itself. Bear in mind, Square behind that name too. There's been a lot of other things that kind of fall under that umbrella. I'm thinking Rise of Tomb Raider. Just Cause. I know there's like Project Setsuna. Also, a lot of weird ones like Valkyrie, Anatomia. There's a lot of stuff you got outside of the RPG realm that can still happen. I always perk up when I see an adventure title or something come out from Square, because it's usually got a kind of cool edge or a cool cut on it. But we'll see. I kind of hope they stay away from the RPG with it, though. I think they got that covered with enough games.
Well, and so this is something, again, and you are, I would almost, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would almost consider you a hardcore Square fan. Like you follow them as a company.
I do.
You follow, and I don't. I'm casual. In fact, I don't even know if I'd call myself a fan, but I've loved some of their games for sure. But they've made nothing I've been interested in the last 10 years at least, probably much more than that. I do worry myself as a casual fan. I have to take that back, because I am fairly interested in trying out that new Tomb Raider game sometime soon here.
Right.
I am worried, however, about a clashing of styles when it comes to Marvel. And again, talking about the comics, and obviously there's all kinds of different comics, but I mean, comic books is a very, very American thing. It's as American as it gets. It's right there with guns and football. It's and cars. I can't forget cars either. But it's right there. I mean, America, if I remember correctly, created this genre. This didn't really exist beforehand. And not that there was anything all that original with stories with pictures, but they've been doing that since the caveman. But you know what I mean? The established comic book is such an American thing, and these characters are very American characters. And I worry about a clashing of styles when it comes to this, because when I think about Square Enix games, I think that there's a very heavy Japanese style influence, and there is to many of them. I know that's not the case for all of them, and I worry that I'm going to see very feminine looking superheroes. You know what I mean?
Right. I'm with you. Or can
what do they call it? I forget. There's a term for it too. I forgot what they call it. Shoot.
Well, what Bishonen?
No, I can't think of it right now. That's all right. But I think you get what I'm saying. So I'm worried about that. Now that being said, just on a visual aspect, but also on a storytelling aspect, these could be. These stories could be told in a very poor manner that just don't work with these characters. I'm worried about that.
Yeah.
Not so much worried about that as much as I'm worried about the visual aspect of things. I mean, is it going to be a beautiful game? Games? Probably, but will it work?
Right.
That's the question. Will they work together well? I love this idea. I love the premise. I don't like that they went with Square.
Yeah.
That worries me because of what I've said with the issues they've had with getting games out on time, and with the styles not working well.
Fair criticism.
And I was just going to ask you if it was coming from a casual perspective, someone who loves Marvel, doesn't like Square, but you follow Square. So I mean, is that warranted? You're saying that's fair criticism?
I mean, I say it is, but that's really due to, I think, what we see of their mainstream release schedules. The thing about Square is it's funny. Most of the time, we only really pay attention when, hey, there's FF, there's Kingdom Hearts, stuff like that, and then we see all the disasters that unfold around those release dates, and then it's
they bring that on themselves though too.
They do because they hype this stuff to all infinity, and then you wait years and years. Just like we're going to wait years for FF7 Remake. Don't worry, you won't see that this year. Probably not next year either.
Well, part one. Just
part one. Part one. Exactly. But what I'm trying to do is step out of that whole team that's working. Step out of the RPG side for a moment, because there's a lot of action games that are just missed off the radar that come out with Square. No one really pays attention to them because of how everything else is getting hyped, and those do hit releases. Those do hit the schedules they're meant to come out on. It's just, especially from what Square brings upon themselves, even they just don't get the same amount of press. So I think I was
just going to say sometimes they do get the press because they're not very good.
Yeah, a good example way back. Some people might remember on PS2, The Bouncer that got hyped a whole lot early in PS2's life cycle. It was a fighting game.
Vaguely remember that.
Yeah, 3D fighting game from Square Enix, kind of in the style of Final Fight, more along the lines of like more of a 3D brawler, like Fighting Force or something. I used to love that game on PSX, but anyway, it was just mediocre. I mean, it wasn't that exceptional as a game. Was it freaking awesome graphically for the time? Heck yeah, but everything else, gameplay, it was all right, So I'm hoping Marvel doesn't strike that tone. As you say, of course it's going to be killer graphically, but I'm looking for them to get something unique that delivers gameplay wise too. So I'm going to give them benefit of the doubt schedule wise, unless I see the name Tetsuya Nomura or any yeah, then I'm with you. Fold your cards. It's over. You won't see this for 6 years.
All right, so yeah, we have some Batman news. Actually, not just Batman, some DCEU news. Some news on the DC expanded universe.
Right.
None of it good. None of it good. It all pretty much sucks. But we're going to talk about it. The Batman. So some news came out this week that was pretty bad. A couple pieces of news, actually. First was in the beginning of the week, Ben Affleck, who has been doing everything for this movie. He was writing the script, he was producing, he was directing, and of course playing Batman / Bruce Wayne. He is no longer going to be directing it. I'm pretty bummed about this. I was really looking forward to that. I'm not a huge who's doing this and who's doing that, and when it comes to movies and such. But obviously, everybody has their favorite directors, their favorite writers, or favorite actors. I like Ben Affleck directed movies. Really big fan of the talent. I was really looking forward to getting a Batman movie similar in that kind of direction. So yeah, I think depending on who you talk to, some people think this is a good thing. I think this sucks. I worry about the direction of the DCEU as a whole. They have not had a good start. I'm a fan of Man of Steel. I'm not a fan of Suicide Squad or Batman v Superman. I think those were both horrible movies. I think Suicide Squad was one of the worst movies of last year. Not a big fan of it. I love comic book movies, and I love all this stuff. And I tend to lean more towards Marvel, but
oh yeah,
that's not to say that I don't want this to be awesome and successful. So it's been pretty disappointing. So that wasn't the only thing that happened though. And this has been. They've been talking about this off and on for weeks. I mean, there's a couple weeks ago when Ben Affleck had made some comments about whether or not the movie's even going to happen. Yeah. Him not being happy with the script, even though he's writing the script. At one point saying that he may not direct it. And then this came out. I guess it was. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Let me pause you there because I'm kind of curious about this myself. If he's not working on it, who replaced him? Who are they bringing in?
Well, they haven't named a director yet. So it's unknown who the new director is going to be. But what also came out later on in the week was, and this might be part of the reason why he's upset and why he decided to step down as a director, is that at some point Warner Brothers asked somebody to either treat the script that he'd written or put in another script altogether for the movie. It's not clear as to what extent, but somebody else has worked on a script for that movie and turned it in. And it's kind of funny because I don't really know how to think of it, because it was a writer he'd worked with on for Argo. In fact, he'd won an award for the writing he'd done on Argo. But at the same time, it was the same writer who co-wrote Batman v Superman. So I don't know what the hell to think about that one. Because at one point, he's an award-winning writer. He's worked with Ben Affleck before. At the same time, he also wrote the huge turd sandwich that is Batman v Superman.
Well, which said sandwich was improved with some condiments, some mayonnaise and everything in the extended cut.
Yeah, a little bit. It didn't taste quite as turdy, but it's still pretty turdy. I mean, the extended cut was better. It definitely did flesh out some things that were missing from the theatrical cut. But this guy wrote the Martha angle. That's still there. That's still a thing. And no matter how much extended stuff they put into that extended version, that was still, the whole Martha angle in that movie is still ever present and is absolutely ridiculous.
It sounds like a coin toss. I mean, especially with the credits he's got behind him. I mean, it could be a good thing if it's a Martha angle or something else. Can't tell.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, this is something we're gonna have to wait and find out more information about. But I mean, this is something that Ben Affleck has a lot of passion for. This is like a thing. Especially he's been quoted saying that this is very important to him. Especially he's a big comic book fan. A big Batman fan in general. They weren't even going to make a solo movie for Batman in the new DCEU. There weren't plans for it. Let me say, I'm sure eventually they would have. Yeah. But because of the role how well he played the role in Batman v Superman, and for me and a lot of people, their favorite part of their movie was how good of a job he did. And this is important to him. For him to step down, that's pretty big. I think I'm not happy, but I'm definitely in the camp of I'm worried now. Yeah, but that's not the only thing that happened recently. The third director at this point has now left the Flash movie.
Oh Lord!
The third director has now left, and Warner Brothers has asked for that movie to go back to what's called a page one rewrite, which means that movie's script is being completely redone. So The funny thing about that is that they're still staying with a March 2018 release for that movie, which is only a year away. And for these movies which are heavy on special effects, CGI, especially something like Flash, which you know is going to have an extensive amount of CGI on it. You can't do that character without there being some kind of special effect. To be done in a year.
It's see, it's one of those things. I'm hoping this doesn't end up like Fantastic Four, that really felt like a rush, and not just the first Fantastic Four, but like the multiple launches of Fantastic Four that still felt cobbled and rushed and. Ugh.
Yeah. I look. Here's the thing for me. It's just that I enjoy these movies. Superhero genre is one of my favorites. Outside of being, just generally enjoying action movies and enjoying superhero movies, I've always been a big comic book fan. In school as an art major, I stylized my penciling styles towards comics. I enjoy the shit out of this stuff, and I've been really happy in the last decade or so how they've actually been able to flesh this out and give this genre a lasting substance.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I mean, as much as I lean towards Marvel, there's no denying that Superman and Batman are the biggest superhero names ever.
Yeah.
And, have Warner Brothers, which has an endless amount of supply of resources to making any kind of movie they want. I don't understand why they're having problems like this. And then you have an actor, you have a director, a writer like Ben Affleck, and you piss him off. Why? Why? Let the guy do what he's doing. Because what you've done so far has not worked. There's no reason why Batman v Superman didn't bring in at least $1 billion, and I think it came in somewhere around 140 million.
Yeah,
Civil War did better.
Civil War clean house, rightfully so.
And a great movie. Don't get me wrong, I love it. It's my favorite movie last year. But it shouldn't have beat Batman v Superman. It shouldn't have done it. Just name recognition alone. Yeah, it just shouldn't have done it.
I mean, it was what was that figure you were saying? 130? That was ended somewhere around 830 million, I think.
What, Batman v Superman?
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. It's scary. A lot of people are talking. A lot of people say that maybe they should ditch this whole thing and reboot sometime in the future. I don't think they'll ever do that. Because even though these movies suck, sorry people, but in my opinion they're not very good. They're still bringing in a lot of money.
Yeah,
they're not bringing in the movie or the money that they should be, and people know that, and Warner Brothers knows that, which is why I think Suicide Squad ended up being such a big mess. Because while it did bring in a lot of money, it didn't bring in what it should have, and a lot of people complained. It's got bad reviews left and right. So again, all the more reason why you have such a talent like Ben Affleck, who's willing to take the helm in such a capacity, and then
see, that's the worst part. I think back to Tobey Maguire, who at his core really wasn't super excited about the Spider-Man movies in terms of like nerding out about them, like really wanted to be immersed in the lore. It was just another role for him. To get someone involved and to get them really into it, I think is the core to making these movies solid. To really getting your audience into it. I mean, you got to have a creative team that loves it as well. I will say this though, one cool part that I will take from Batman vs Superman. I don't know how this is going to extend into the new Wonder Woman movie. If that's going to be any good, who knows? But at least Wonder Woman didn't have an invisible jet. We didn't have really weird lasso antics or stuff like that. I thought she was cool. I thought they presented her power set really well. So, and that sword is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I almost. Yeah, I don't think the DCEU is actually up to the task of trying to explain and validate an invisible jet.
Yeah, they're
having a hard enough time with the basics. So glad that they're not tackling that. Maybe down the line.
For sure. So, I think that brings us to my reason for us separating this into parts and being away for a section of time, and that was freaking awesome event I attended, PAX South.
You went to PAX South. It's funny. I was actually I just saw a bunch of pictures on this the other day,
Yeah.
and it looked like a lot of fun. It definitely looked like Nerd Central.
Yeah, I think the coolest part about it is like any persuasion of gaming you do, especially tabletop gaming, that was really big there. You're gonna find it. If you want to just do free play for PC all day, you want to go hit the console gaming hall, you want to go hit the arcades, you name it, you'll find a spot for it. Now, this is an event I normally go to each year. This is my first year at PAX South. PAX South, out of the PAX events, is the youngest one, if I recall. It's only like 3 years or so old. I'm usually hitting PAX East in Boston, which has a huge draw. Square Enix and everybody shows up for that. But no, it's a good change of pace. I got some friends near the area. We wanted to change things up a little bit this year, and hey, love the trip.
So what was some of your favorite things that you saw there? What were you there for? Because I'm sure you had some kind of idea of what they were going to have there.
Yeah.
Outside of the fact of participating in a convention like this, what were you specifically looking forward to doing and seeing when you were there?
For me, a couple of things. I love checking out the vendors halls to these because always within the vendors hall you're going to find developers from usually a lot of different studios. I know like Capcom usually always has a presence in events like these. Of course, Resident Evil celebrating the 20th anniversary, so I figured there'd be some stuff going on with that. Of course, there was a whole lot. Mainly, I'm really big on anything console related. With that, though, comes some of my favorite studios, but also the indie devs and the indie team. Now, I've been pleasantly surprised by this. My first PAX I ever went to when I was in Boston, um, Nuclear Throne. It's on Steam. It was an indie game that was just being published and just coming out, and they had a whole lineup of indie developers there. There had a lot of stuff I'd never even heard of. Of course, for PAX South, it was on a smaller scale, but still, that was there. Love what I saw. Two of my favorite games that I got to play were Beats and Shapes, and also Nefarious, where instead of kidnapping princesses, well, instead of saving princesses that are being kidnapped, rather, you're the one kidnapping princesses, and later on, you get kidnapped by a princess, and it's like in the style of Earthworm Jim. So, stuff like that, lots of fun. Anything, again, console related, devs, vendors, I'm all about it.
Well, so you were telling me about this one thing where they're playing some music during a speed run.
Yeah. This is hands down my favorite part. Now, concert events and especially like gaming bands, I'd say PAX South and PAX East are about equal on these. I mean, there's always like a really great music section if you want to go check out concerts, like Friday night, Saturday night, that kind of stuff. But Bit Brigades really stole the show this time. They did 3 NES speed runs. Castlevania, Batman from 1989. I never beat that game. They helped me complete my childhood. And also DuckTales. And what they had a speed run set up, and their band was just doing like their own like rock covers of each transition. So when you had a boss present, it would just shift to the boss theme, or between stage theme, or that the actual theme that was set for that level. And just to have that live, I mean, was pretty sick. I'd heard of Bit Brigade, but I'd never actually seen them play or anything. It was pretty stellar. Well, besides all that, though, I think the consensus we reached is we're probably going to continue to go to PAX East each year. I think if all of us were hardcore into tabletop and stuff more, we'd stick with South. But hey, again, great time. Really enjoyed it. Good convention overall. But since we got all this talk about gaming going, I mean, let's face it, I think it's a good chance to go right into our main topic we've been speaking a lot about. And we hit this quite a bit last week. We were speaking about consoles, a little bit about mobile, handheld gaming, but especially arcades. We touched on that a lot.
Oh, yes. Yes, we did. I wanted I don't know if there's one person in particular I would apologize to. I don't think so. But in general, after our last discussion on this, I wanted to apologize to arcades in general. Because I felt like I was a little rough on arcades. Not that they weren't smelly, because they were, but I think I think I was talking like they were kind of out of the realm of existence now, and they're to the respect of what they used to be. They're not at all the same, but there are still arcades.
Right.
And they're full of those fun hoop games and tickets and buy your troll pens and whatever the else you do with your ticket. They still very much exist. I think the point I was trying to get to though was we're talking about games and we're gaming systems and such. The arcade, which was once and for a very long time, couple decades at least, the leader as far as where you get the best games. It is not that anymore. In fact, I would have to think that arcades at this point, while I have not technically seen one myself, I know they do still exist to some capacity. They're basically gimmicks now. More, I think, more in the vine of fairs. Mm. What do you think?
Yeah, I think only if you're focusing purely on like skee ball and things like that. I mean, it's kind of like going to the quote-unquote carnival attraction, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, I think it depends what circles you run with. Like, if you're, for example, with fighting games, okay, if you're really into prepping yourself for Evo and everything else, it's not always just about what you do online. Sometimes meeting up at the arcade is a thing. I mean, you're regularly sitting playing with an arcade stick in your lap anyway, so it's not much of an extension to go in and sit down and throw down a few games in the arcade. But it's not. I'd probably say it's definitely not as widespread like that anymore. If anything, it kind of feels hard, to me at least. Arcade moved a little bit more towards the hardcore.
Well, I love the arcade experience. Don't get me wrong, but I haven't seen any of the latest games in a frickin' arcade cabinet in years.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'd argue that, at least in my opinion, for the most part, you're pretty much going to see that with fighting games a lot, because that's what they're built around. Start with Tekken and. Heck, even latest Blaze before that came out, that was in arcades. All this stuff hits arcades before it hits consoles, and I think that's a real sign to the type of development direction of these. The type of players who still frequent arcades, of course, and who very much see that as a legitimate medium, especially if you want to get a heads up and a jump on these games before they actually hit on consoles.
Yeah, but is that still the case? Do these things still come out in the arcade first, or even at the same time?
Yeah, I'll name a couple of games. Blaze Blue Central Fiction. That was an arcade first.
What is that?
So okay, it's developed by Arc Sys. You've heard of Guilty Gear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same studio that did Guilty Gear, and it's a separate. Well, apparently separate universe, right? I'm just waiting until the crossover Blaze Blue versus Guilty Gear now. But no, it was from the same group. That's always released in arcades first. Tekken, to my knowledge, those hit in arcades first, such as Tekken 7. Yeah, it's in arcades. So.
See, and I just looked it up as you were saying that because being a huge Mortal Kombat fan, I know that didn't have an arcade release.
See, and that's the really weird part, because you know how big MK is. And that still got quite a following for, Evo each year.
Yeah. So I was under the assumption that this is somebody who used to go there and spend hours daily at an arcade. And I'm sure developers still make games, as you said, but right. It's not an industry leader in the slightest anymore.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this isn't the first. Launch point you go out to check out these games. It's just some of them still follow a pretty pattern release type style, at least to how they used to. So I don't know.
I guess I owe an apology again to arcades. You still have, no pun intended, you still have some game. Not much, but you still have some apparently. So I apologize to arcades for hurting their feelings. I thought I framed that a little too inappropriately last time. But I think for this sake of the conversation we were having, they have fallen mightily.
Yeah.
As to where they were, and hey, if you find an arcade, go have some fun. Go play some games, get some tickets. Why not? Get some tokens and plop them in. But yeah, we still have a few key parts of the conversation that we're having, talking about and comparing and contrasting gaming consoles and devices. But I do think the arcade portion of that is dead, much like I thought it was dead. But I think we've covered the ground on that. But there are some key things that we didn't talk about that I think a lot of it has a lot more to do with how gaming is now and how things have changed now. But I do want to step back a few years, though, and talk about a model of gaming that came out, which you would probably think started with handhelds but didn't, and that was the free-to-play model. Yeah, which obviously is not much of a model for the consoles, but is a huge model for both, where it started on PC and obviously for handheld, which it is almost, in fact, it is the industry leading for handheld, is free to play.
Yeah. Or, as we like to lovingly call it in some circles, freemium.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe maybe other people will know and be able to make comments in the comment section. I believe free to play started with MMOs, dating back about a decade or so, where MMOs were getting their asses handed to them left and right from WoW, which they were all using the monthly subscription model at that point, but a lot of these games just could not keep up with WoW using the model of monthly subscription, and so some of them, and I believe Warhammer was one of the first that went free to play, and I believe now pretty much WoW is the one of, if not the only, model to still use monthly.
Yeah, here's the incredible thing about how MMOs transition. WoW still has managed to maintain a monthly crowd, but that's saying a lot in an environment packed with free to play, because it's just not the standard. A lot of things people want to ask, well, why am I paying a sub for this when I can just go and play something else that's free? To my knowledge, one of the only other ones I play it, FF14.
Okay, so that is monthly still.
Yes, it did manage to maintain the model, and it has a solid base behind it. But that's not the norm. Nowhere anywhere near this was like in the early 2000s or anywhere before.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny though that what was one of the most expensive type of games to play is now technically one of the cheapest, where they'll even let you just download the game. You won't even have to buy it. But as you say, it's oftenly referred to as premium. The side effect of this is that to get certain aspects of the games that are free to play, to get certain things, to have access to certain areas, to make the game a lot easier, you pay to unlock things. You pay to have access. Now, I don't have any games on my PC that are like this, but again, on the handheld, there's a couple games that, in fact, just about all handheld games are like this. It's the model. They let you download it for free and then play it for free, but you get bombarded with offers. Overall, what do you think about the free to play model as a whole?
This is a delicate.
Do you think it's been good?
I mean, I think it's a really delicate thing to balance. It's good when you have additional premium content that's offered that doesn't directly interfere with gameplay, e.g., don't pay this to unlock the rest of the game. No, give us the game, allow us to do that, allow us to coordinate and strategize how we want, but if you want to add those extra bells and whistles and stuff, go for it. I think anything that puts the game itself behind the wall really leads to failure.
Well, I remember a couple of years ago, I used to mercilessly mock Killer Instinct that was coming out on the Xbox.
For this model. Yeah.
I was ruthless when we used to talk about that. Who was it that was a big fan of it? And they were talking about how much they were looking forward to it. Do you remember? Was that your friend Steve?
I think it was.
And what did they come out with? They came out the game. I can't remember if you had to pay for the game or not. I think the game was free, and they gave you like one character, but then you had to like buy all the other characters.
It was like a couple of characters that you had to You had to purchase a bunch of stuff.
That's you could play, I think, single player and go through the game with your one or two guys. That's horrible. Look, there's some things that are. It's understandable, and I think now after a few years of this, there's been a happy medium found where it's like, okay, you're letting me play this game for free, and that's great, and I can upgrade this game with DLCs. Either some are free, some you have to pay for, and that's great. But there's a time when it's an obvious cash grab,
right?
And I think, for lack of a term, the integrity of the game is seriously compromised. Because of stuff like that. I've heard of, I can't remember the game's name, but there's a game that's notorious to where you had to pay to get the endings. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Yeah, there's you hear this stuff everywhere. I mean, and so this is. I want to say there's a distinct difference here, though, too, at the same time. And so we're talking about games that you can play for free. This is not the same as, for example, and I'll use this as an example overall. I think I brought this up a little bit last time. Mortal Kombat X, which I'm a big fan of. The console version came out, has had some DLC, some combat packs, or if you can buy them in smaller bunches, you can pay for like a small skin pack or something. There's only a couple bucks, or you can get the whole combo pack, which was, I think, $15, $20. That's DLC. You still had to pay for the game, and they come out with some free stuff too that you can just download, which is great. Then you have Mortal Kombat X on the mobile, completely free. But there's all kinds of packs and stuff that you can buy. You can unlock characters. You can make them stronger by purchasing these things, or you can work for them in game, which is extremely tedious. Or you can try to randomly get things which you may never get. I think it's a good model. What's funny about this, and why I bring this up as an example, is because MKX on the console has been done for about 8-9 months now. They're not coming out with any more content. They came out with the second big combo pack, XL, Mortal Kombat XL. They came out with a few different versions of it, couple new characters, some new skins, new maps, different kinds of fatalities, all that stuff, and they've done nothing else since. MKX Mobile is still going strong, still pumping out new stuff. They just put out a new character that you can buy now, get early access to, or wait to grind and get them in about a week. I get to feed on my Facebook page, and I go and look at the comments, and the vast majority of the comments are people bitching that these kind of characters, because they've now expanded the mobile game well past the characters that are in the console, and so people are just bitching that these guys aren't coming out on the console, which does suck. You're getting characters like everyone wanted Freddy Krueger to come out for MKX because you got Jason, you got Leatherface, and you had Freddy Krueger in MK9.
Yeah.
So everyone wanted him to come out in 10. He's not out in 10, not on the console version. You can get him in the mobile version, though. And stuff like that, and everyone complains about it. They don't understand, and this is where I think it's funny. I think it sucks. I would love for these things to be on the console version as well, but the mobile, first, they're two completely different development teams.
Yeah.
But secondly, they're not coming out with these things on the console because they're making money still. They're making a bunch of money still in the mobile version.
Oh yeah.
Which is in every respect a lesser game. It's not even a regular fighting game. It's like simulated fighting. In every respect, it's not as good of a game. But the fact that it's mobile and the fact that it's free to play, I think is what has divided this and made it so that the console version no longer makes any more money, but the mobile version is still going very strong to the point of pissing off the console fans.
Wow. I mean, it's just this idea of something continuously evolving, right, versus a project or a piece of work that's gone more static. I mean, of course, we're accustomed to old cartridge release, for example. When a Sonic game came out, man, that was it. I mean, I remember when like Sonic and Knuckles hit, and this whole concept of being able to place a cartridge on top of another cartridge, and oh my god, new game. I mean, that was a trip, But the point was that wasn't the norm by any means. But here you have a case where like as you said, the mobile is lesser in terms of raw gameplay and everything, but it's that continuous development that arguably should still be happening on console that has really just migrated over to mobile. And this isn't limited to MK. It's to the point now where some of these mobile releases and the content that they push in these, they're getting as much spotlight slash stream time or getting represented right alongside the rest of a company's rollout and release. Perfect example, I think this past week Square was talking about is the 30th anniversary of Final Fantasy. They had all the different dev teams come up and speak a little bit about the work and what's happening. And here it is, a bunch of mobile games. FF Brave Exvius, coming right in the middle of a massive, press announcement. And this is odd, but but it shows it's got a following.
Sure. It's very odd for us.
Yeah.
It's. So I think that there's definitely been something to be seen for the free-to-play model. And going back to the original example of that, going back to MMOs, the free-to-play model is working for them.
Oh, yeah.
There's games that are striving and in some cases surviving from having once been monthly but have gone to free-to-play. It's really interesting. The ironic part is that in a lot of these cases, you're paying a lot more to play these mobile games.
Yeah.
You're dropping $5 here, $10 there, $20 here. At the end of it, you're paying a lot more than you ever would have. And that's the funniest part. But this is something where if you would have asked me about this in the past, I would have never thought free to play with these kind of access to download, to pay for and download. Freemium, as you said. I never would have thought it would have done very well.
No, same. You get nickeled and dimed to the point where you look up and just dropped $1,000. Whoops, over X amount of time. But there's some cases I think where this gets really insidious. Besides just extras of, spend a little here, ease your grind a bit. Spend a little here, add to this. I think a good example, you're talking about MMOs, one that's really gone downhill as a result of this model, Ragnarok Online. Those of you out there who played that, I played it a while way back. This was one of the early MMO games out there. More of like a 2.5D style game, but today, okay, it's alive, it's still going. No, it doesn't have a subscription model anymore. But the premium content is almost enslaving. It's to the point where you have to spend cash for some of the special upgrading material, and you say, I'll just do it the normal way. Well, good luck. Because chances are your stuff's going to break, and you're saying, I want to get that plus 10 item. Well, plus 4 is the safety under something normal. Guess I got to go spend to get. It's just, I think that's really troublesome because that system is required to advance your gear, and yet that freemium model has really taken over that whole system, and I can't stand that kind of stuff.
So something that was interesting, and for many of you don't know, some of you who are listening to this do, I used to play WoW. I used to be a big time in WoW. I played that thing religiously for about 7 years. I was leader of a guild, and then I was in a hardcore raiding guild. It was ridiculous. One of the things that you could always do for years, in fact, they came out with this, I think, about a year or two after the game had started. You could buy. It wasn't considered how they consider it now, but they came out with an in-game pet that you could buy. You could purchase. All the money went to charity. You spend actual money on it, and you'd get the pet in game and stuff like that. And that's where a lot of this kind of additional pay for stuff kind of started. This is something that you can still do. You can buy mounts and pets. You can't buy. I remember you still can't buy armor. Or weapons and stuff, but you can buy vanity things, I think is the term that they use for it.
Right.
And they're fun. Even WoW, which still has the monthly subscription, still allows things like that. They work both models. I don't think it's quite the same, though, because, again, these are things that don't affect the gameplay so much. How does Final Fantasy XIV work that?
So I think 14 is an example of this system done right. And it's what I've always believe strongly, that those types of extra content you can buy, that should not interfere with your main progression. The way it works in 14, of course, there's a subscription model. Anything that you buy extra in 14, that literally works for things like coming up with different dyes for your glamour system, like limited to time holiday glamours or hats and stuff that are available for a certain amount of time. After X amount of months, those become available to buy if you want to spend a couple bucks picking those up. Another example, there's a mount, a special mount that you can get. Also, with some of the promotions, like if you get some of like the premium statues, you get like a special emote. You can get things like that. But the point is, I'm totally cool with that. All of those are just aesthetic adjustments that you can have or you don't have to. They affect absolutely nothing about your progression in the game, and I could not agree with that anymore.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. How do you think the player base would feel if that changed? If you could start buying enchants to weapons or advantages? Let's just round it up in the general term of advantages in the gameplay. How do you think that would affect things?
Oh, they flip out and rage quit, man. I mean, we're talking like table flips. I mean, and bear in mind, like 14, FF14 too. This is a sensitive community about that. This game was dead. I mean, literally dead on arrival, and it came back out of a coffin and became something amazing once Yoshi P and his dev team picked it up again. But people are concerned about this kind of thing because they saw the game in before, and that was something very heavily vocalized on forums before the relaunch 2.0 even happened. When the premium system was even uttered, first thing people did was just storm over, expressing their worry about, well, please, and we're hoping that those premium items don't affect progression in any way, because I think a lot of people have been burned by games like that. They played that before. Here they are, ready for a subscription model, and there's no room for that. So it wouldn't fly.
So I mean overall, in comparison to the previous gen, at the point of lifespan that they're at now, which would be about 3 years in, there's a substantial estimated loss of over 100 million consoles sold, in comparison to, again, from this generation to last generation.
Right.
What do you contribute to that to? Because I mean, obviously, consoles aren't doing as well as they used to. Do you think the free to play model or the freemium model, do you think that's having an effect on it, or do you think that this is just an evolution overall? I think. Well, you know what? I'll stop and I want to get your opinion. Then I'll go. Yeah, what do you think of that?
Part of it's the mobile side of the market. I think you have a lot of people that simply just like to enjoy something you can just sit down or just have just on the run, easy to access, easy just to pick up, sit back down, go about your business. Those have grown exponentially. I think there's a number of people that have still been enjoying or migrated to PC for gaming in those terms, because console has just come so much closer to a PC these days. You can't help but you're going to shop for a console and you're sitting here looking at specs, and here I am all of a sudden starting to compare the latest GeForce and Nvidias with the current specs I see for console. I never thought about this stuff before when I shop for a console, and now with that being at the forefront, I think that's another strong part of it too. So,
well, I'm gonna expand on that a little bit here a little later on. But I think it's definitely. I think mobile gaming overall has eaten into everything. It's kind of funny. Again, I'll cite MKX as a model, whereas the games, the console version and the mobile version interact with one another and help each other. You get bonuses for doing things in one area or the other, and you get bonuses for it. There's been a couple times where the mobile version came out with they came out with skins where if you unlocked or did certain things in the game, you would get the skins in the mobile version and vice versa.
I was about to ask you, what's the cross impact of that? Like, for example, could you do something in mobile that would allow you to unlock a character, even like on console? Or
it works both ways actually. At the same time, there's factions. And every week there's a faction leader, and if your faction beat everyone else for that week, you would get bonuses in the mobile game. That's about. There's not a lot that the mobile version does for the console, but there's a lot that the console can do for the mobile. So everybody gets bonuses at the end of the week, but the faction that won gets a lot more, substantial amount more. For the mobile version, stuff like that. But I think I think that's really smart. on neither Realm Studios' part, and I'd like to see more stuff like that where there's a mobile version that works. I think in that regard, that helps the developer to keep both popular. In that particular example, we're a little bit past the lifespan of the console version, but it's still, people are still doing it. I don't get into the console version too much anymore, but I'm still part of a faction. I still get bonuses once a week. So someone's in there kicking ass. So that's great. But once we still get some community. So I think that's a strong way for them to keep things. I don't think consoles are in trouble as far as mobile, as far as versus mobile gaming. I don't think they're in trouble, but things are definitely down from where they were. I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that coming out of the gate, PS4 was kicking Xbox's ass. Oh, yeah. And they've been dominant up until just this last year, where for the first time around the holiday season, Xbox actually led the PS4 in sales for a couple months. Overall, PS4 dominated them as they have been for the year, but I think that has something to do with it. Whereas in the previous gen, it was definitely back and forth, starting with the Wii. And then Xbox dominating, while PS3 slowly creeped up to where they were not even by the end of that gen's lifespan, but they were pretty close. Sony righted their ship. It took them forever, but they did eventually right the ship. I think with as hectic as that was, it was very common for most people to have more than one of those consoles. Yeah. I don't think that's so much the case anymore. I think you have a dominated console. The Wii isn't really even in the picture anymore either. Whereas, so you're really, while you're looking at the Wii U, the PS4, and the Xbox One, you're really not. You're really just looking at the last two. The Wii U is not really a player in this, so that obviously eats into that, because the Wii sold a ridiculous amount of consoles at first, and dominated the industry for the first couple years. And that's not Nintendo's isn't a factor, so I think that plays into it a lot. But I was surprised when I was researching this a bit. It's well over 100. In fact, I think the number is 128 million less consoles sold 3 years into the lifespan of the generation versus last year. Man, that's a lot. That's a lot of missing consoles. And I think a lot of that also has to do with the resurgence of PC gaming. Those of us who have always enjoyed PC gaming, it's always been there. We've always loved it. But for more casual gaming fans, it's fluctuated. Yeah. So in fact, there was many of years where, especially when I was playing WoW, where I wasn't console gaming at all, or hardly ever. I had always had a console, but there was years where I just didn't. I just didn't play a console game at all.
You bring up something really good, and then I'd like to freeze frame that a second. It's the balance, I think, between PC gaming, console gaming, mobile gaming, whatever you do. That's something I experienced. I know when I really started getting into PC gaming, trying to find that balance, between what I want to play on console, mostly fighting games, but trying to find where each one fitted. Here I am used to playing consoles all my life, and now I have something PC wise to slot in. So, in just thinking about that, especially with mobile, I think it's about coming to a happy medium. If you can have some kind of interaction with the mobile as opposed to the console version, the more you can marry those two, I think, the more you can kind of help both of them move along together instead of one taking over the other.
I think for the more casual base, there's something to be said as well for mobile games being very easy to pick up and play. Yeah. You and I think it's fair to say we like complicated games.
Oh yeah.
Even if they're overly complicated, we don't care. If it looks like it can be good, we'll enjoy them. That is not the case anymore. You and I, in our previous podcast, based on the game that we both love so much, Armored Core, we had many discussions about how part of why that's dying to the point of where Armored Core is pretty much dead now is because it is a thinking man's game. It is a complicated game, and in large, the player base has grown away from that. And I'm not trying to say that's good or bad. That's just the trend.
Yeah.
And that's still the trend. And I obviously I'm not a fan of that. But it is what it is. And I think that's a lot of it. Mobile games, you download them, you play them. You swipe your finger around, you click on the screen for a few things. It's so easy to just spend money. They made that easy as hell too. It's also freaking easy, and that's fine. I enjoy them. I enjoy them myself.
Yeah.
But I think that's a lot of it too, though. The ease of picking up and playing, and I think that's why mobile has been able to be so dominant.
Fair enough.
So there's a couple, all that being said, there's a couple other things here that it's kind of funny because you and I have talked about this a little bit. Virtual reality. VR is trying to, it's kind of funny because, again, around our ages, we've watched the evolution of gaming, and virtual reality was something that at one point was just sought after. It was the holy grail of gaming. It's like, it's just, it was like a fable, because even any example of it, talking about in the 90s and even the early 2000s, it just wasn't possible to be immersive and done well.
No.
It just, the capability wasn't there. Now they're finally there. I think virtual reality is to the point of finally being there, and it's tanking. No one wants it. Sales are in the toilet across the board for all these different virtual reality. What am I saying? This is the word I'm looking for here. All the different accessories that you can buy for either your console or solely dedicated virtual reality systems. It's in the shitter across the board. The PlayStation one's doing okay. It is definitely doing the best out of all of them, but none of them are doing what they were hoping.
And even with that, it's funny because I've been sitting here looking at PC specs lately. I'm looking to do some upgrades. I was still pretty amazed to see that some PCs are coming out the gate with compatibility, at the very least for VR, and being actually set with that out of the gate for stock, which I found kind of neat. If anything, VR seems to have really had this trouble getting momentum going out the gate. I've seen nothing but delays, and we're talking a little bit about Oculus Rift in the news even. On top of all that and the technical issues, you got these lawsuits that are coming out left and right. So one has to wonder if this stuff is really, really going to jump off now. And it's a weird deja vu because I feel like we've been here before. When I used to go on Blockbuster Video, it was like early 90s, there was a Wario game, and I feel like such a terrible gamer for forgetting that right now. But it was...
Are you going to talk about Virtual Boy?
Yes, I am. And I'm pretty sure it's Wario World. Please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone else.
I think it was.
Yeah, Virtual Boy, perfect example of this.
Virtual Boy.
It went, just the idea of that had so much hype around it. And then the execution, though, once everything was, it just tanked. It's just non-existent.
Yeah, it was horrible. That's what I think is funny now. I think this is, and I applaud the fact that they still they've still tried to do this, and they've tried to make it a thing. I think there's going to be real world applications for virtual reality, but as far as entertainment, as a mass entertainment platform, I don't think it has any legs anymore. I think the entertainment system, entertainment genres in a whole, whether you're going to use this for watching movies or interacting in that capacity or games, I think it's gone by. I think we've gotten so used to playing games the way that we play them, that in the different ways that we do now, we've gotten so used to that I don't think I think virtual reality is going to end up being a gimmick we find in arcades. In all honesty, I was thinking about this myself because I am not interested in VR in the slightest. I'm interested in some of the games that are coming out. Resident Evil 7, which just came out, I think is a good example of this. I have no interest in wearing a headset for this. And I was trying to think to myself, why is this? Because there was a point where virtual reality was going to be the stuff. And why do I not care now? And I think, when thinking about it in playing games, it's like, you know what? When I'm playing a game, I like to be able to stop for a second and take a drink of something.
Yeah.
Or I like to stop what I'm doing and go and get something to eat, or go use the restroom. In all these things, if I get a phone call, I can just stop what I'm doing and answer. Virtual reality is one of those things where it's so immersive. You take yourself out of where you are, not just your attention, but I think everything around you.
Right.
And I think that's why it doesn't work anymore. I think in today's culture, where people are a lot busier, they have a lot more going on, their brains are thinking about a lot more things. Being able to take yourself out of your whole world is unappealing to most.
Right.
And I may not be explaining that properly, but I think maybe you're getting what I'm saying about that.
No, absolutely. Just heck, even speaking for myself, I like gaming to be that experience where I have that controller or I have whatever device I'm using and I got the screen there. That's it. My periphery and everything else, that's mine. I don't need this entire experience to draw me into it more, throw me into it more. Right. That's not what I'm looking for at any of this content. So
not only do you not need it, but you don't want it.
Right on.
And I think that's where I think there was a point where, ironically, when VR was not possible, was not a tangible thing to happen, that's when it needed to grab its audience. I think nowadays it's just it doesn't have the ability to do it. I just don't think it's I don't think it has a mass audience anymore. Not to the size of everything else. That's my belief as to why it's not going to do well. And that maybe we won't see it much in the future. I hope it sticks around. Again, talking about Resident Evil 7, where that's something I would play not using VR. I think the VR version of that is awesome. I'm watching videos of people playing this and freaking out, and it looks like fun. And maybe that's something that I would mess around with once or twice, but that is not how I want to sit and play a game as a whole.
Couldn't agree more.
So I think it's a good gimmick, and I hope it sticks around. But I don't know if we're going to see this in the next gen console. I don't even know if they're going to continue to support it in the current one. Even though, like I said, Sony's is doing the best as far as sales. They have stopped most marketing and development for it already. Yeah. There's still a little bit here and there. But for the most part, the big push for VR in where it's doing the best is almost non-existent now. And already, this was something that they really wanted to push for this last holiday. And I don't think they even pushed it very well then, because I think they already saw the writing on the wall.
But wherever it goes, another noble effort. I think overall in gaming right now, this really feels like that pre-phase where we're examining everything that we've done. We're examining everywhere that we've been, what worked, what didn't work, what was popular. This has been the age of remakes left and right. The revisionist history almost for so many games, the elaboration of games. The list goes on and on. With some of the big mainstream titles, FF7 remake, and some of those others. But I think that's something significant to point out. And as we're tracing back through all these grounds, we're going to see what things we actually can pick back up that we just didn't have the tech to dive in before, that needed to be explored more, or what were those things we just needed to leave dead and just leave them alone in their corner. And we're starting to see this. I believe as well. This, as in VR, is one of them.
Yeah, all that being said, I didn't mean to glance over the fact. I did briefly comment on it. Virtual Boy was a huge piece of shit. It was really. Everybody thought that was so cool, though. I remember that, like, oh my god, look at virtual reality, and then it came out, and it was so bad. It was red. It was shades of red and black, and it wasn't. There was a headset, but you had to line up your head with it, and there was still. It was just no. No one wants this. No one wants this. And I think that's a perfect segue. let's spend the last bit of this topic talking about the future of gaming
Yeah.
as a whole, and where the industry is trying to move it beyond virtual reality, which I don't really think, while I think they give it the good college try, there definitely wasn't. It wasn't like this is the biggest thing. This is the next Virtual Boy, or what Virtual Boy was supposed to be.
Right.
The Switch, Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit. This is, I've done a little bit more research on it since our last time. I can't remember what I said then, but I know we talked about this a little bit before the show. This, I think, will be Nintendo's biggest failure next to the Virtual Boy. This is a bad idea.
And it's so interesting hearing about this, because I'm just coming off of PAX, where, mind you, this is the thing that Nintendo came to demo and to have on show and to really push. And you know what? I took my time. I stopped by the booth. I checked it out. And I guess one thing that kind of hit me is, of course, I didn't see any exclusives I'd expect to see from Nintendo, like new.
Right.
New
we'll talk about the exclusive things soon. Trust me. You heard me talk about that.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous, but I'll bring that up in a minute. But let's talk about the system as a whole right now.
No, for sure. Like that's the other thing that concerned me. The first thing I saw, at least gameplay wise, it was some sort of weird kind of like boxing sim, and it wasn't really even in the spirit of Punch Out. But games aside for a second. It's important to highlight what the Switch is attempting here. So we kind of pointed at last time. Here you have a mobile inside of a console, inside of a multiplayer, multiple. And the interesting part about this is now we're seeing, okay, there's a shift a bit away from all-in-one multimedia center, which is what was being pushed beginning in the PS2 era going forward, which sort of started to step away from, look more at PC specs and everything, and now it's, at least with what the Switch is presenting, is let's take that mobile arena, let's take that handheld arena, let's take that console feel, let's take that multiplayer, let's throw them all into one thing, but not have the powerful graphic component behind it, but take maybe 75% of this and maybe 80% of this, and kind of mash them together. And in the end, what you have, I'm still coming out of this the same. You asked me this. Would I buy a Switch still, even with all those things? I've been an optimist about this. You were straight up defending. Absolutely. So even from what I've seen now, and just being able to see things up close, I think the release is going to be interesting and everything. I am still even now in no way more motivated to buy one.
It will sell out. It will initially sell out because there's that many core fans in the U.S. as well as there should be. Nintendo's earned a huge hardcore base. It will sell out at first. The first time we talked about this a couple weeks back, I was pretty confused as to what the hell they were trying to do. I'm not confused anymore. I just don't agree with it almost as a whole. I think the biggest thing, when I saw for me in why I'm predicting the final nails in the coffin for this thing before it's even released, is because they're not trying to. My initial theory of what the Switch was supposed to be was a console system that you can take on the go.
Yeah.
But that's not what they're actually doing. They're actually pushing this thing. The model for this thing is a mobile system that you can set up as a console.
Yep.
That's dumb. That's just dumb. I mean, for all the reasons we just talked about here, for free to play and things like that, in the ease of using a touch screen and everything, this is not going to attract the casual player, the casual gamer at all. Well, maybe some, but almost none. If you're, and I get it for Nintendo, they should try to hold on to the mobile market, having been the dominant since the beginning of the handheld market.
Right.
I get a push to keep it, but this is not that grab to hold on to it. This is not the grasp that you go for. This is not going to do it. This is not going to come close, in my opinion. I think as things have evolved from handheld to mobile, and that I think that evolution is going to continue. dumping another mobile system on us isn't the way to go. Not like this. I think if Nintendo wanted to make a splash, at least as far as the U.S. markets are concerned, I don't know about everyone, but I know for me, as much as I've been a big Sony fan, as much as I've enjoyed being a Sony and a PlayStation fan for years now, I have still always been waited and silently, if not loudly, cheered for Nintendo to come out with that home console that I can fall in love with, just like I did when I was a kid. Am I alone in that? How do you feel about that?
No, you're not alone. I mean, I'm sitting here smiling, thinking of SNES and especially 64. I mean, heck, even SNES. I named that before. I think in the last segment you'd asked me it's my favorite game of all time, and it came from that console,
right.
As well as many other games that have just achieved legend status as far as games are concerned. I mean, the level of immersion they were able to reach even back in 16 bits just rocked. Again, I cited it before, but Super Metroid is still a stellar example of what you can accomplish even without having tons of graphic availability to it. But even thinking about all that, something like this is somewhat it's a gamble in a way. It almost feels like this is a way.
Little bit.
Yeah, this is a way for Nintendo to really see if they can change the narrative with what's happening with mobiles and with where consoles are. And at the best, just assuming you had a mass success, to spark some conversation about that to kind of steer more of the market towards it. But I don't see it having that kind of long-lasting effect. I think it's something very specific and very, very niche for what it is. But I don't personally see something like this going forward as our standard for gaming, what we're going to continue to see and what we're going to continue to see consoles do.
I don't think we're going to see something like this again.
No. Probably a one-shotter already.
I mean, again, you have to take your personal bias away. And I don't have a personal bias towards Nintendo outside of a favorable one. I've always wanted them to do well. I've always wished for them. It's like thinking, the PS4 is coming out, the Xbox is coming out. Maybe this is a few years ago, 3-4 years. This is actually what I was thinking. Maybe Nintendo's going to wait this time and see what these things are going to be, and then they're going to come out. This is when they take the grab back for the console market,
right?
Which obviously isn't the case. But here's the thing: you gotta look at the handheld fan base, the mobile fan base, and first of all, are they going to pay $300 for this new console? For this new handheld? No. When did anyone ever pay $300 for a handheld?
How much was the PSP?
I think it was actually that's pretty close. Maybe that was around $200, $250 when that first came out. But no, it's no one's going to pay. Well, not again. I say no one. I generally speaking, no one's going to pay for that. Very few people are going to pay for that. Here's the other thing. Now I'll get into the games a little bit. This shocked me. This floored me. And I understand that they're doing this partly as a promise, which is great. But they didn't. They don't have to roll this out the way that they are. The first exclusive game, Nintendo game, I should say, licensed Nintendo game that's coming out for the Switch, is the new Zelda game. Which, do you know the name of it?
I don't.
I don't either. There's been so many. I don't. But the first. This is going to be the Zelda game's going to come out. They're launching that game with the Switch while releasing it on the Wii U at the same time. It's ridiculous. I can't think of the words without using vulgar words to explain how I feel about it. That's so dumb. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. We've been having some technical problems. So
yeah, I hope I am. Go on.
I can't. I mean, if it's me, again, I'm shopping for. Say I'm getting again. I know what Zelda is. Zelda's huge. Everyone knows what Zelda is, especially anyone who plays games. They know what Zelda is. It's been around forever, and it's like, well, I really want to give Nintendo a try. It's like, well, you can get the Wii U, and that's half the price of this new Switch is coming out. Yeah, but what about the games? Oh, it's going to have this new Zelda game. It's coming out at the same time. and they're the same price. And this game was actually originally being developed for the Wii U, so it's pretty much just as good. Why the hell do I buy a Switch? Seriously, can you think of a reason?
You have a lot of people around you that really just want to spontaneously pick up and go or just do pickup games of random stuff like I don't know Mario Street Fighter.
Well,
That's all
we
I
haven't
got for
even
you.
talked about that too much yet because I disagree with that premise as well. But no, that's more of a regional thing, though. I think I'm talking more. I think as a whole, although I am talking a bit on the American market, which I obviously am a part of. Um, yeah, I mean, but if I'm trying to buy things, if I'm trying not to dump down $300 plus to $400 to play, get a new console and get a game, why? Why do I not pick? And here you have the Wii U, that already has a huge library. Uh, neat little system. Didn't attract me, but that's all right. I looked at it when they were first announcing it, but we're talking about years later. I just this is stupid. It's stupid.
Especially if you're pushing something premium or flagship, Zelda, Star Fox, Metroid, Mario, all of
Yeah.
those I think have when those come out, they're never on like a separate Nintendo system. They always tend to enjoy a release on whatever's current, or if it's the Wii or something else. This is pretty unusual, I think, to anyone. By all means, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's very odd to see a new main property Nintendo have a double release.
Well, they've done it with some Pokemon games. But
Pokemon,
that's a little bit
yeah,
different. You have your established bases for Pokemon. You have your handheld fans. You have your console fans. That's a little different. This is at the launch of a brand new console.
yeah,
I
grim stuff, man.
I don't understand it. I really don't. And again, part of the reason they're doing this is that they made a promise to Wii U owners that because I guess this game has been in development for so long, it was originally going to come out in the Wii U. So they made a promise that it will. But you release it, hell, 2 months later, even 1 month later, but not at the same time. Not when you're trying to push a brand new product that's $300.
Yeah,
That's yeah. You see, and I get upset like this, and I criticize like this because I care. I wanted Nintendo. Like I said, I've always waited for Nintendo. I think I'm done though, and I'm not. I've never been a big handheld guy like we talked about in the last one. Yeah, shoot. Like I said, my last handheld, the Game Boy Advance, was given to me. Because they had another one because there was bite marks because the dog had chewed on it, which was awesome. I always play. I was like, yeah, look at my free Game Boy Advance with my dog bites. Whatever. I played with it at work a little bit. I've never been a big handheld person. There's definitely a huge market for it, but I don't think people want this hybrid system. For my understanding, as far as handheld versus, and even mobile, handheld versus console, is that you're going to get a better, stronger experience out of a console and PC game. I don't think this is going to do well. Now let's talk about what you were saying and what they've been selling the Switch on so much was that you can play it at home or you can pick it up and you can take it with you, and that sounds neat. But does anybody? I mean, and I've watched the promotional videos for this too. I mean, I don't think there's a huge base for that. I've been doing a lot of talking on this.
It's hard to
go ahead.
It's hard to picture, and I say that I really say that because as a gamer myself, look, if I'm going to snipe a bit of time on a mobile or something, well, somewhere, if I'm commuting on like a subway or something like that, if I have a moment, yeah, I'll take some time to swipe it. Other than that, taking all this specific time out to switch and multi and oh, I can't lose my spot. I gotta keep playing. Like, no,
Yeah. No, I don't.
I have a very set time for when I sit down and game. If I go out and do stuff, I'm going out to do stuff. I'm not going out to keep continuing on something I'm trying to do or find that next save point. I leave that in its box. I don't have to keep that whole continuity, to keep that whole experience going. It's funny, that idea isn't new. Stuff like the PSP Go,
Mhm.
also a lot of Sony's efforts to integrate PS3 with handheld, even PS4 with handheld. That idea is there, but it's not being pushed to the extent that it's being done. What we have here at the Switch, and I think taking that as the main model, the main sell point, uh, you gotta have the community around you to support that.
Right.
I don't
Right.
see it right now. At least here in the West, I don't see it. Maybe that could catch on more elsewhere, but I don't see it.
No, and again, this might be my my Midwestern roots a little bit. I've never been on a subway. Even when visiting Chicago, I've never even been on a subway. I've never driven. I'm not driven. I've never ridden a train. Outside of a gimmick, outside of something that was like you're supposed to be paying attention to your surroundings. You know what I mean?
Right.
I've never needed to take mass transit from A to B, outside of the bus when I was a kid. And trust me, that was, it's not like it was half an hour before school and I decided to hop on my Nintendo Switch and I was having such a hot game I took it on the bus with me. You know what I mean? That's not happening. And I would suspect that for most kids, that's not happening. So, while I can see that there's a base for this, I think it's very small.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with what you were saying. I think this is a regional thing. Maybe this is something that will be a lot hotter over in Japan. I don't know. I've never been there. I know the mobile market and especially the handheld market's a lot more popular over there.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, but guess what? That's not going to keep the Switch afloat.
No.
But
hey, open opinions and ideas. I'm actually really curious to what those of you listening think about this. You got something contrary to it? Do you see something else in the crystal ball that you think we're just straight out missing?
And with your crystal ball, if you use your crystal ball at home, do you often just take it with you when you go somewhere? If you're not done looking at your crystal ball and you have to take a 20-minute ride on the subway to work, do you take that with you?
Let us know at ksawmedia@gmail.com.
Yes, or say something in the comments. Please, if you want to be mean, please do so. I can take it. I'm a big kid. So there is one other section of this, and again, researching in between the last time we spoke to now, there is one other section I want to talk about when it comes to the future of gaming.
Yeah.
In talking about the different generations of gaming consoles, something that I had heard about actually last year, but not to this elaborate point. Microsoft has been laying down subtle hints that they may not come out with another generation of console.
Yeah, I do recall.
The Xbox One is likely to be it. They haven't said that it is it, but it's said likely to be it. That was shocking to me because I know they've been getting their butt kicked, but I didn't think it was that bad. In fact, I still find plenty of people that are avid Xbox players.
Oh yeah.
But now recently, I've been hearing that part of why they're saying that is that they are hinting and they're trying to create the buzz of they think that the time of different generations of consoles has come and gone. And what they're talking about, and we've seen this already. We've seen this already with the new versions of the PS4 and the Xbox One. What is that called? Scorpio?
Yeah.
One of them called Scorpio. That's the Xbox One, right?
That's for Xbox, yeah.
Yeah. That we're already starting to see that, and that what's going to happen from this point on is that we're not going to get new generations, but we're going to get upgraded systems. So maybe that's what they meant. Maybe that's what they were preluding to. What do you think of that? That's really interesting, especially for us. I'm about, my memory and my age is about a generation or two ahead of yours. I remember the Atari and we talked about the last time, and having the Atari and the first home console systems, the first computers in our home. So I've lived through and have experienced and played the lifespan of home gaming.
Oh yeah, I
What do
mean,
you think of that though?
I mean, heck, my dad set me down in front of Atari, Pitfall, all that other good stuff. So,
Yeah,
coming through that to where we are now, it comes back to one of my earlier points about what we're trying to figure out all this stuff is and how it's evolving.
right.
This is the step right now in gaming where we're really taking a step back and seeing where everything stands. And of course, this is I think this is simply part of that. Considering an upgrade only path, quote, I don't think that's necessarily forecasting this is where gaming is going to be, period. But I think it's a necessary revision. When you have PC, it's sort of like everything's kind of caught up to each other at this point.
No,
PCs,
except for PCs are way ahead of consoles, but
always.
yeah,
But they're kind of shoulder to shoulder now, and you're not looking at consoles and PCs, for example, as separate entities as much as you were before. So
right.
it's really this reevaluation phase. I think the gaming industry's trying to figure it out. I think we're I think the only ones that don't seem too lost in this are gamers. We're just simply saying, hey, keep turning out the hits, keep turning out interesting things that we'll want to experience, worlds we like to explore, and we'll be there. We'll pick it up. But it sort of feels like we're reaching a saturation point. I think it's going to break. In no way, shape, or form think that we have hit the ceiling to everything we're going to see with gaming. No, of course not.
You think there will be other generations of home consoles?
Definitely. I think we're gonna go from here. And it's not, I think, going to be something that simply caps off, or we just sit with PC specs. I think too. Here's one thing I'm hoping. I think that happens that I think is going to spur whatever's going to push us through this plateau. It's developers, I think, loosening up a bit and being willing to kind of go out there with those titles that they're not necessarily banking on as much to hit a certain amount. Budgets for games today have become about easily up there at the movie industry. In the same hand, when you put so much on a certain IP or a bet on a release, there's so much riding on it. It's almost like this has to be successful, or else. There seems to be so much more weight riding on games released today, especially the big games, the AAA games, and things being delayed. You know what? Fans are cool with that. They said, hey, delay it, push it back. As long as you give us something quality, that's awesome. We'll take it. We'll wait. But this has become really exaggerated, and I really miss, personally, a time where it really felt, you'd have these titles that would come out, pretty regular releases, but some of them were successful, some weren't, but a lot of them were unique ideas. I remember when Earthworm Jim just kind of got thrown out there. Donkey Kong Country just kind of got, tossed out there. There wasn't this huge 8-year plus publicized campaign about, development cycles and everything. It was a unique idea. It was a studio that got together to push that, and I really hope that more studios can see you don't have to come at us with 1080 absolutely perfect textures, incredible 3D graphics. Give us great experiences, give us great games, and solid gameplay, and you will find fans every single time. So,
I think I'm still developing an opinion on this. I don't have a definitive stance on it yet.
Yeah.
However, where I'm standing right now is that I really this actually kind of frightens me a little bit. I really don't like this. I am in no way, shape, or form an experienced game developer. I say that as a pretext of what I'm about to say. However, I do have a degree in digital arts and animation. One of my majors in college was 3D modeling and animation, and there was a sizable content of my 3D modeling and animation that had to do with game development. And this is just talking about on the visual side of things. We did a little bit of coding and scripting, not a lot. But I remember in particular learning in college, going into 3D modeling, they said almost immediately, you have two different forms of 3D modeling. You have low poly and you have high poly. And low poly was for games and high poly was for animation, movies, special effects, and such. While these things cross over, in fact, they cross over a hell of a lot more now than they did then. You had the two fundamentals.
Yeah.
And what was important about this was that low poly you needed to know because it was important to get the most out of the least amount that you could. And I'm gonna hit back on that again in a minute as to why that's so important. Whereas high poly almost seemed lazy. You could use as much as you wanted to get the visual that you wanted. It didn't matter. You had no confinements. Low poly, however, in your confinements had to do with the specs of the system and the specs of the game that you were looking at and what the system could and could not do. What I think is important about that is that restrictions like that breed creativity.
Right.
And they breed evolution as far as what games can and can't do. You give somebody a box to get out of, they're going to try to find a way out of that box. And not all people are going to find the same way out. Some people will go from the top. Some people will go from the back. Some people will go through the sides. Some people will use different tools. These are all things that people get to know and use, though. So when you're talking about using the same kind of engine but just beefing it up step by step by step by step, but using the same engine overall, I don't like that. I as a fan of gaming and animation and 3D modeling as a whole, I like the fact that there's jumps in systems. I like the fact that there's confinement, and what we've learned and what the industry has learned from these confinements. Shadow of the Colossus is a perfect example of this.
Yeah.
That game should have never existed on the PlayStation 2. It should have never been on there. They spent that development team spent, I think, a year and a half just trying to make simulated hair look the way that it did. And obviously other visuals and aspects of the game as well, to make that game look the way that it did on that system that it had no right being on. And it's that kind of struggle, and it's that kind of those kind of things that is what I think makes the gaming industry so great.
And I'll pitch this on top of it. Some of this may take some medium breaking, and I say that in regard to kind of going outside of the conventional, well, frankly, composition you might be used to. Let's think of the very first Super Mario, right? That was designed on graph paper.
Right.
The levels, this was built by hand, pixel by pixel, because they were part of the constraints of what we had at the time, and part of the constraints of the medium. All this stuff, there was not a way to sit and plan all this out on a computer yet, or lay out the whole level, or do just even what we have now. It didn't exist. So, that creativity, we managed to take a very analog medium, something manual, and bring it into a digital medium. And I think that's really special. It's not saying that, of course, that has to happen with every game again going forward, but I think that kind of creativity is a really, really important factor.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about this and listening to what you're saying at the same time, and I'm going to take us all the way back. We're going to go full circle. We're going to go full circle on this whole topic and go back to the arcades and how they dominated for so long, and in large part because you would have home ports. Let's go as far back as the home port for Atari for Pac-Man. That thing was dreadful. even as a 6-year-old kid sitting in front of the TV playing the Atari, I'm like, this is crap. I mean, it's Pac-Man and that's cool. It's the official licensed Pac-Man home version, but this is nothing like the arcade version. Because they had the restrictions. They could have made it look a lot more like the arcade version, but there was the restrictions of the console. And as time went on, the consoles got stronger, but the arcade, they didn't, there would be an evolution to the hardware for arcade games as well. It was slower. Because there wasn't the need, there wasn't the drive to try to port that that was the premium version was there in the arcade. But things eventually caught up and caught on to where you had basically in the starting with the PS1, they had caught up to where the home version was as good as the arcade version, to where you have it now where the arcade version, if there even is one, is some kind of spin-off version of what is a much better and immerse version on your home or PC, on your home console or PC. And I think that's another good example of why I think that these steps in the evolution of the home systems are important. The drive to push the boundaries, to push the technology, to push how things are done. So my stance on this right now is that I don't like this, and I'm typically not a person that fears change, but I'm feeling a little bit like I'm fearing the change. Again, and it's still speculatory. This is obviously from what Microsoft has said. This is the way that they want things to go. They also have a substantial amount of reason to want that, because Microsoft is obviously neck deep when it comes to PCs. So yeah, I don't like it though. At the same time, though, there's something to be said for the ease of being able to develop games on a standard hardware system, whereas all the games that are going to be created still start at a base that started several years back, and they're able to build from there. Except for they can make things look better. I get it, I get that, but there's a part of me that just that worries. I'm scared. I'm scared. No, this is again. I don't have what I would call a fully developed opinion on that yet, though. But that's where I am at, and that's how I'm feeling about that right now.
Fair enough.
Boy, I can talk a lot, can't I?
Well, and you have history in 3D design. Myself, I'm more from the school of multimedia, specifically focused on audio development. That's one of my original degrees in. So audio graphic design and communications, marketing, planning, that kind of deal. I kind of tend to approach a lot of this stuff from more of a summary level. Again, I'm no dev myself. I don't have any experience in direct game development outside of building some Flash games. So don't ask me about that. But as far as what devs have to go through, what they experience, the limitations of the platform, all those exact struggles, I only have what you all have. That is the direct accounts, those direct interviews of the actual makers speaking out about what they got to deal with in the industry and the types of challenges that they face coming up with these kind of games. So I don't speak to that side of it, but what I do know is that gaming. And the reason I have hope, and I guess why I'm really not too afraid about it, is while gaming itself has evolved, its following has evolved as well. This has gone from something that's been very concentrated to the elite of tech, or those who want to be on like the cutting edge, to something pretty broad. It's really not a stretch to talk about gaming these days, or to think it's something far flung, or that a console isn't in a home, or that a PC game isn't in a home or somewhere. This is pretty ubiquitous stuff by this point, and I think as a result, you're going to have more really large demand, frankly. I do hope devs don't give so much into the fan bases, though, that they only draw their objective analysis and they only draw their inspiration from what fans want. Yes, that's so important to listen to. It's important to listen to your base. Diablo 3, I'm looking at you.
Yes.
But in the same hand, that can't. I don't think that can form the entire base of what they're creating and what they're going to do with it. So,
right.
But I think they balance that. It seems that they've struck the right chord with it, and I hope they continue to do so. We'll see where it goes. I think it's going to be a fun ride. I hope to be a console player for many, many years to come. Thumbs up. Hope I'm not wrong in that, and we'll see.
Yeah. No, one thing's for sure. It's going to be interesting and entertaining.
Right on. So,
all right, I think you go ahead, wrap it up.
No. So, we always make this reach out. The rest of you're seeing Doomsday. You don't think it's going to be fun? You don't think it's going to be entertaining?
Did I come off like a Doomsday?
No, you didn't. You didn't. I'm exaggerating. I'm seriously exaggerating.
Okay.
But no, please give us a comment. You're welcome to like, favorite, subscribe, or by all means, be sure to send us in an email. Again, that's caseonmedia@gmail.com, and go from there. But
all right.
Until next time, thank you for tuning in, everybody. It's been fun. we'll catch you again, and we'll be bringing plenty of fresh content to you. Take it easy, and you have a good one.